416, we have already pledged our lives to one another. Published by Divine Tao Library. Translator, Salavan and Godbrandy. Translation checker, Pew Pew Lasergun. Editor and proofreader, Leo of Zion Mountain and Dale Ligerkeys. Although Ziyu wanted to explain the situation to Zhang Sunying, she knew it wasn't the right time. She could only wait until they met later, saying gratefully, "Many thanks, 7th martial aunt." She then ran to Yang Kai's side and grabbed his hand, urging, "Let's hurry and leave." It's too late for that. Yang Kai forced a smile and looked at Zhang Sunying helplessly. Zhang Sunying also sensed something and frowned, her face darkening. When she intercepted Yang Kai and Ziyu earlier, she did so out of instinct. She was an elder of Ice Heart Valley, and she couldn't act as if nothing had happened when she noticed someone moving around sneakily. This event, coupled with their brief skirmish, alerted a lot of people. Yang Kai and Ziyu lost their only opportunity to escape as a result. Zhang Sunying felt regretful. Had she known earlier, she wouldn't have stopped them. Shua shua shua. After a series of light steps, several Emperor Realm Masters surrounded Yang Kai and Ziyu. There were 8 of them in total, and a few others were on their way, with their auras rapidly approaching. There was no 3rd Order Emperor Realm Master among these people, but there were 2 in the 2nd Order while the remaining ones were all 1st Order. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai was surrounded by several beautiful women. The sight was dazzling. Beauties were literally raining from the sky, with all sorts of appealing appearances and attributes, making him feel as if he was in the country of women. However, Yang Kai wasn't the slightest bit happy, his expression turning grave. It was his first time being surrounded by so many Emperor Realm Masters, and even if he could use space principles, he wasn't sure if he could escape unscathed. Ziyu, you sure are bold, secretly meeting with a man, running away from the restricted area, and even stealing the sect's artifact. When Yang Kai was lost in thought, wondering how he should escape, one of the 2 2nd Order Emperor Realm Masters suddenly shouted. This woman was gorgeously dressed up, wearing a light blue skirt. Her face was ice cold, and she gave off a hostile feeling that made those around her uncomfortable. It was unknown what kind of secret technique she cultivated, but when she stood there, her whole body was shrouded in sword intent, making her seem incredibly sharp and dangerous. Ziyu panicked and waved her hands at the beautiful woman, trying to explain, "Great Elder, that's not it, this is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" The beautiful woman snorted. "Do you think that this queen is blind? You were the only one in the restricted area, and the artifact is now gone. Are you really going to argue that it wasn't your doing?" Ziyu turned to look at Yang Kai, but she couldn't just say that it was him who stole it, so she kept silent. "Good, so you admit that you were the one who stole it." The beautiful woman sneered and turned to the other 2nd Order Emperor realm. Ziyu broke the sect's rules and didn't repent while in confinement. As if that wasn't enough, she stole the artifact in the restricted area. "I ask senior sister to choose her punishment." Hearing her words, the other 2nd Order Emperor Realm Master sighed. She looked at Ziyu with a complicated expression, her eyes filled with guilt but also affection. After a long time, she said, that ice bead is something the ancestral founder left behind. Why did you take it?" She also believed that Ziyu was the one who took the artifact away. After all, she was the only person in the restricted area, and the artifact was, now, nowhere to be seen. Ziyu said, "Honored Master, I didn't steal the artifact." She just told him that she didn't take the artifact, without snitching on Yang Kai. She didn't want to involve him in this matter. "In that case, where did the artifact go?" her honored master asked gently. She seemed to have a far gentler temperament than the other 2nd Order Emperor Realm Master, who was hostile and aggressive, her voice as smooth and soft as a whisper. Yang Kai asked in a low voice, "Junior sister Yu, who are they?" Ziyu hurriedly explained, "One is my honored master, Enruo Yun. The other is Ice Heart Valley's great elder, Sun Yun Xiu, as well as my 2nd martial aunt. My honored master is first in seniority among her sisters." Yang Kai immediately understood. The woman who was as gentle as water was Ziyu's honored master, Ice Heart Valley's current valley master, Enruo Yun. The other woman, who was as sharp as a sword and very aggressive, was Sun Yun Xiu. The 2 of them, plus that Zhang Sunying he met earlier, were all junior and senior sisters. Bing Yun really took in some amazing disciples. All of them grew up to become Emperor Realm Masters. Though, I can't say if it was thanks to the good environment here or if it was because she was a good teacher. However, it wasn't the time to dwell on this matter. Yang Kai cupped his fists and said, "Junior Yang Kai greets several seniors." Who do you think you are? You actually dared to break into my Ice Heart Valley at night and kidnap one of our disciples. Sun Yun-shu reprimanded, a cold expression on her face. Yang Kai frowned. Elder son, this is a misunderstanding. I'm not here to kidnap junior sister Yu. I was entrusted to take her away from this place. Sun Yun-shu was way too aggressive, which worsened his opinion of her, and judging from her attitude, she didn't seem to like Ziyu too much. She was likely one of the people that had folded under Seeking Passion sect's pressure. This little brat even dares to talk back. Sun Yun-shu snapped angrily. At this time, two other figures fell from the sky, one of them focusing on Ziyu and exclaiming, "Little sister Yu, what are you doing?" He looked greatly disappointed when he looked over at Ziyu, but when he turned to Yang Kai, his face was full of hatred and murderous intent. Both newcomers were men, with one of them being a second-order Emperor Realm Master and possessing a calm and dignified expression. The other was an outstanding young man in the third-order Dao Source Realm, who looked brave and heroic. Their identities were already clear as only two men were staying as guests in Ice Heart Valley. They were the Seeking Passion sect's Vice Sect Master and Young Sect Master. They came here because they were alerted by the sudden movements around them, but when they arrived, Feng Shi saw that Ziyu was holding Yang Kai's hand, and she was doing so on her own initiative. The discovery caused his face to darken, and he felt as if someone had just placed a green hat on his head. He was deeply humiliated, which enraged him so much that he could explode at any time. None of the women he had taken a fancy to dared to treat him like this. All of them belonged to him, body and soul, and followed his every order like faithful servants. Although Ziyu always used harsh words when speaking to him, Feng Shi didn't pay it any mind, but now, this cheap slut was being so intimate with this unknown man. Was she purposely trying to anger him? If word of this were to get out, would he still have any standing left in the Northern Territory? At that time, he was afraid that every person would subconsciously stare at him in pity when meeting him. When she saw Feng Shi looking at her hand, Ziyu realized the inappropriateness of the situation. As she was trying to flee with Yang Kai from this place earlier, she didn't hesitate to grab his hand, but before they could move, all her martial aunts surrounded them, preventing them from leaving. Under the pressure, Ziyu forgot to let go of Yang Kai's hand. After finally returning to her senses, she felt how big and warm Yang Kai's hand was and she blushed subconsciously, wanting to let go. But then, she suddenly thought of something and her jade-white hand, which was about to let go of Yang Kai's hand, tightly grasped it once more. This time, she used even more strength, until their fingers were clasped. Yang Kai looked at her in surprise, a strange feeling welling up in his heart. Ziyu blushed slightly, and her tender body slightly leaned against Yang Kai's arm. She then looked at Feng Shi provocatively, "Young Master Shi, please mind your words, I have never allowed you to call me little sister Yu. Moreover, I'm free to do whatever I want. None of what I do is your business." Hearing her words, Feng Zai's face turned ugly. He was livid and he angrily looked at Yang Kai, clenching his teeth as he shouted, You court death. How dare you try to steal my woman?" Yang Kai sneered when he saw this, obviously understanding why Ziyu was acting so intimate with him. She wanted to let Feng Shi see how close they were. Yang Kai found her method amusing so he played along. Ziyu was unable to control her future, and this was the only method she could use to save herself, hoping that Feng Shi would give up on her. However, Feng Shi was so enraged that he was now planning to commit murder. "Who is your woman? Shameless." Ziyu didn't want to leave Feng Shi any face, and seeing him threatening Yang Kai, she openly scolded him. Feng Shi was so angry that his face turned pale. It was inappropriate to shout curses at Ziyu, so he could only vent his anger on Yang Kai, glaring at him as he accused, "Boy, are you so weak that you need a woman to act on your behalf?" Yang Kai grinned, "Young Master Shi, arrangements do not work unless all concerned parties agree. Do you really need to go this far? Junior sister Yu and I are deeply in love and have already pledged our lives to one another, so who is stealing whose woman? This young master doesn't want to lower himself to your level, so why do you keep crying, thief? When you're the thief?" Everyone was stunned. All the Emperor Realm Masters from Ice Heart Valley looked at Yang Kai and Ziyu with their jaws dropped, finding this revelation inconceivable. Ziyu was also stunned. She hadn't expected that Yang Kai would say something like this in front of everyone. What, deeply in love and pledging their lives to one another? He was simply tarnishing her reputation beyond repair. Her face became deep red, just as if it was on fire, while at this time, she really looked like someone who had done unspeakable things with Yang Kai. Seeing Ziyu's red face, the numerous Emperor Realm cultivators from Ice Heart Valley looked at her strangely. Her seventh martial aunt, Zhang Sunying, gazed at Yang Kai and praised him in her heart. It was her first time meeting Yang Kai, so she didn't have much of an opinion of him, but after hearing his bold words, she felt that Ziyu had chosen the right man. If it wasn't true love, how could he act so courageously in front of so many Emperor Realm Masters? On the other hand, Feng Zai's face was so cold that frost could appear on it at any time. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Never would he have expected that the woman he'd taken a fancy to, and used all of his sect's resources to pressure into submission, had already become someone else's plaything. He felt as if he'd just eaten a dead fly. He was deeply disgusted, and he looked at Ziyu with eyes filled with hostility.